Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Deep Thoughts. So today is about NPCs, or non-player characters. And there's a very interesting reality to this, because I've been talking about it for about 1.5 years, cannibalizing my background in video games, making them, not just playing them. And I've never heard anyone really get into this sort of thing. And then one of our listeners contacts me and says, completely on the other side of the planet, and she says, my husband and I and this other guy are really debating this now. And there's sort of a movement around the whole thing. I'm like, cool. I sit in a cigar lounge where we look for things online, and I've never heard anyone bring it up. So I love the fact that people are starting to think about this. But we need to define what a non-player character really is so that we can have a conversation. Now, if you and I were to meet, and you're sitting where this camera is and I'm over here, we would talk about our lives. We'd talk about where we were brought up and the processes of accomplishing what we've accomplished. And there's a certain level of difficulty and reality that we would share. You know, yeah, my mom was like that too. Yeah, my dad was like that too. You know, school was just like that. Oh, yeah. You know, when you got your first job, oh, yeah, it was really, did you ever see, oh, yeah, you totally got where you wanted to go in that area. And it just seems to be this normal progression of events, this normal level of friction, and this normal level of exploration and how it captivates you along your journey, right? I mean, imagine you have a field of flowers of all kinds of exotic avatar types. I mean, they glow, they trade pollen in some crazy sacred geometry cloud between them. And, you know, you and I walk in there and we're like, holy shit, you know, it's like low light so we can see it all really nice. And we're just literally in like a botany's dream. And then there's a guy who's never been there, just walks right through. It goes to the other side and exits. And you're like, wait a minute. Who the hell was that? I don't know. Well, he didn't even stop. Yeah, isn't that weird? That is weird. I mean, I know that scientifically speaking, this person has never seen something so amazing in their life. But they just walked. Maybe they were terrified. I don't know shit. It would seem, it seems more easy in a political realm to find these folks, because at least with a rock star or a movie star, you can at least point at a skill and go, well, yeah, well, they're good at that, you know. But a politician, which is where NPCs, you know, it's interesting. That's when we usually bring it up, is when we're talking about a politician. Because what are we looking at? We're looking at a heartless, gutless, soulless piece of shit who's in some gigantic role of power, perceivably, right? Now, again, if a puppet's a puppet, what is a puppet? You stick your hand up its ass. It doesn't have a soul of its own. It only speaks what you impersonate it to be speaking. Now, there's a couple of ways to approach this conversation on a long-term basis. I'm going to talk about NPCs more, but we should probably get out of the way in the foundation of this conversation. What would we be talking about in terms of where they come from? If they truly did exist, where are they coming from? For those of you who believe it's a computer simulation, right off the bat, it is a computer simulated human, but so would we, like World of Warcraft, the quest giver, the merchant. They're not real people. They're controlled by the computer. They have so much speech they can do. So take them up to Westworld level. They have full speech, full cognitive capabilities, and boom. but we're on a computer. Then take it into the real world. It is Westworld. We physically do exist. We do have a 5-sense system that we live in, the vessel. They have some form of that, but they are automated. They are controlled. Okay. The other one might be that we have sort of that we are an insect that is possessed. And so we're all being possessed. But one is a lot more, one is possessed for the sheer purpose of creating an antagonistic character to our protagonistic storyline. And so it's just part of the process. It just has to be this way. But the interesting thing is I think we can see these robots, I don't mean to say robots. Tenacious D had a funny line in one of their first record where I think it's Cage was talking to JB, and he says, "Do you think we have robots? Do you think we have robots living among us?" And he says, "No, I don't think we have the technology." And they go on with the album. I always thought that was very interesting. Certainly left a seed in my brain. But now a lot of these politicians, many of us haven't seen them in real life, which is always kind of disconcerting, to think you think someone is real that you've never seen because you've seen them on television. But you take like a Barack Obama, who has absolutely no fucking past. He has spent millions covering up his records, or someone has at least $4 million of taxpayer money. And then you have someone like Al Gore, Al Gore and Barack Obama have something in common in that they both won Nobel Prizes for fucking nothing or bullshit, right? I look at Al Gore talk. Come on, folks. He is a living fucking robot and a bad old model to begin with. According to the Tyrell Corporation, he would be like an alpha of, the Nexus 1. Barack Obama got in front of a group of 6th graders. His teleprompters broke, and he left because he couldn't think of something to say to fucking 6th graders. Oh, sure, he's got 2 daughters of his own. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can raise 2 daughters, but you can't talk to 6th graders. Give me a fucking break. But you're qualified to be president. It just gets more insane and more insane with these people. So it's neat to come up with a theory. It's neat to name a few people that seem fucking weird. Hillary Clinton, she seems like a goddamn robot. Hillary Clinton seems like she speaks out of a catalog of what other people have said in a cliche, trite, boring, shallow way, right? She's never said anything in your entire fucking life that has ever been deep or meaningful or anything. She is just a playbook. 42, 43, strike. Oh, you're doing that all? Yeah, it was invented in 1938 when football was starting to take off. Oh, yeah. But what is a politician also called from time to time? They're called puppets. And if you think about it, what is a puppet? It didn't do much until you stick your hand up its ass, right? Tell it what to say. And people can take turns sticking their hand up its ass. Already Obama's getting excited. So you can control it over and over and over. You can have one personality for an interview. It could have another personality for a speech to a 6th grader, a speech to, a bunch of Oprah's listeners. But as we always have to ask, to what end? Man, never clip a short filler cigar with a guillotine. It's like a kaleidoscope of shit in your mouth. Short fillers are cigars that are made from the floor clippings. You never know when you're getting one. This was a freebie from Babalu Cigars. Tastes delicious, but goddamn, it's like confetti in my mouth. To what end, though, right? Well, we know that we have to have choice in this world. And they know they have to control the experiment. Like, really control it. maybe their goal is to create leadership out of our stock, but we can't do it. The Russians, for instance, it's a very interesting story. One of my old partners, she's half Jewish and half Russian, and she did her internship in Russia, which is when I confirmed the rumor that they don't have a lot of microwaves in Russia. It's due to health reasons, not due to their inability to microwave food or build the invention. She told me that for hundreds of years, the Russian citizens would actually send for a czar from Europe to run their country because they didn't have that kind of vocational aptitude back in the day. They could never get anyone up to that point, at least where they felt comfortable. And so here comes these czars moving in, and they are of European descent. They have all these medals and honors. They look like Michael Jackson on steroids. And the people are so happy because they're like, oh my God, at least this person will help us develop, help us get some sort of economy going, even create an economy, take our agricultural products and find a buyer, and our steel manufacturing will be set up and we'll have some buyers of that too. And then we'll bring in some engineering recipes and build something. So we've seen this sort of sensibility in world history. And Russia probably is not the only one. It's just the only one I know of. But look what happened. Russia stopped doing that. Vladimir Putin is a Russian citizen. He looks probably the most pure Russian of any male I've ever seen. Pure. If NPCs were to exist, then this is truly an experiment. We're either in a computer or we're in a physical body, and they are keeping the training wheels on, as it were, of the experiment, embedding themselves inside our flesh or our form, such that they can sort of manipulate the experiment on a daily basis and watch what happens. And I'm just going to run with this, so, I'm not sure if I believe any of this. I'm just going to run with it, right? But now, what would you want to do if you had some cage with a creature in it, and you have programmed them to want the fundamentals of the universe because they are sort of the true form of life, which might be better defined as sovereignty or freedom from harm, but also the sovereignty and freedom to succeed in some endeavor. And so, I sound like a robot, don't I? So the idea is you would want to stress test the ability of your being to do this. And a totally other analogy would be, you want your car to go fast. You're building a Formula One car. And so what is the factor that you're going to stress in the car? You're going to stress speed first. Straight arrow speed down a runway, down a salt flat. Then what do you have to do? Well, F1 courses are anything but straight lines. Some of them are absolutely insane in terms of hairpin turns and what have you. So now you have to create a vehicle around the engine that can handle all this stress. And because turning at the fastest speed is usually where you get to pass people and, win the race, then we need to make sure that our car is the best freaking car on planet Earth to do this. The engine has to be able to come to zero as quick as possible. Not zero, but go way, way, way down to do these hairpin turns. And then we want the engine to accelerate as fast as possible. I know you feel me, but think about it. If freedom and success and ingenuity and invention is our charter as a being, then they would want to stress everything that has to do with that. Stressing our bodies, right? Someone might say, smoke 3 packs of cigarettes a day. I want to see what happens. Oh, yeah. The filters kill you. The chemicals on the paper kill you. Now, smoke 5 cigars a day or 18 cigars a day. Oh, man, the guy lived to be 100 years old. Oh, interesting. Interesting when you don't smoke chemicals and fiberglass. But now, maybe the formula car and the NPC is actually a pretty good analogy, because the idea might go down to this. What if you had no course? You had just open ground, okay, for as far as the eye could see, thousands of miles in all directions. You put a ton of formula cars down inside the game grid, and instead of like shooting a light cycle tail out the back, they just wander around. They bump into each other. They break their wheels. Some of them crash and kill themselves. Some of them just drive in a straight line because they just don't know how to steer. You have chaos. You're trying to herd the cats, as it were. But you're looking down going, all right, we got to do something about this. That has to have some form and fashion for us to really see how this works. We can't just have a random life, chaos program running. So they had form. They had governments, nations. They had races and language. All of it's a stress test for us. Well, all of you are the same. We're going to make some of you really dark brown. Some of you are going to be kind of yellow. Some of you red. And the white people, well, they're going to rotate through all of them. We're going to make you speak Spanish, you speak English, you speak French, you speak Swahili, whatever. Let's see how you get along now. Oh, look at that experiment. What happened? Oh, man, that race just totally killed the other race. Oh, Jesus, we'll put some more back down there. We can't have any genocide. They'll fuck with our experiment. Yeah, no problem. Got them cooking up. They have to keep the thing on course. Think about some of the ludicrous shit that happens at the political level. And for me, right now, I could imagine some celebrities being NPCs for sure. But I tell you, the ones that are more bona fide are the politicians, Because they're what the fuck was that? Because they are the ones that really control the policies of how we are allowed, quote unquote, to behave. Isn't that a bunch of fucking bullshit? We have, because of mass hysteria, we allow these folks to control our lives in shitty ways. California State's about to get a huge red enema. Thank God. We have the single most concentrated Democratic fucktards running this state that has ever existed in humanity. Unbelievable shit. Like, you can be arrested or fined, $20,000 as a waitress that asks if you want a fucking straw in this state, right? If you so much look down and say, I'm a boy because I got this shit between my legs, they want to press charges against you, right? I mean, it's like the fucking lunatic children have taken over this fucking place. It's crazy. One billionaire wants to separate the state into 3 fucking pieces, and it's being reported like he just gets his way. Unfucking believable, right? Every single place in this state where a collection of homeless people get together, that community has so many fucking problems on their hands, from people being raped and murdered and accosted by these really aggressive panhandlers, and our state goes, yeah, more of that everywhere. Nothing about building institutions to rehabilitate these people, get them back on their feet like we used to have. But now think about it. I just allowed myself to react on camera to these stupid agendas so you could see what a non-player character could do to me. If politicians in large were NPCs, isn't it interesting how this entire society is set up for us to look at them, listen to them, turn back to our real citizens, and react to it? Well, have you ever been involved in some sort of experiment where your brain was being questioned? You watched a movie trailer 6 months before the movie comes out and they're asking you, was that motivating to you? Would you ever participate? Well, they show you something and then you react. Haven't you filled out a survey online after you used a service? First you used the service, then you filled out the survey. That's what we're talking about. That process. Now, there is a scene in season 2 of Westworld that is very, very brilliant. I will speak about this metaphorically because the season's very new and a lot of you haven't had a chance to see it yet, so this won't ruin it for you at all. Of course, the reason to bring up Westworld here is because it's a fictional example of robotic technology reaching a level where human beings can't tell the difference. As most of you would assume, there's going to be a point in the history of this show where you're going to get to see the backstory of who invested in Westworld. Because they keep telling you that the place was running out of money, and at some point it gained its stride. It gained its purpose and its stride. They beautifully reenact the moment when the investors who are solicited to help out are shown the technology. And, our assumption was that, or my assumption, I should say, was that it was so far in the future that it was not a huge leap for the person to see this technology when they went into Westworld, right? But there's this scene they reenact with the investors evaluating the technology, and they are like we are today, where they are going, how could you be so far advanced? We don't have this technology yet. It's the 100-year theory episode I did, right? So what could our captors' final objective be for us with these NPCs? Do they want to always have NPCs here, holding our hands? Well, if it's anything like training wheels, the easy answer would be no. Eventually, we rise to the point where we can take control and something else happens, right? Now, I don't want this to be some political bias thing, Usually I dislike all politicians, quite frankly, and I think every single one of them are flawed human beings because human beings are flawed. They really are. And I'm right there at the front of the protest holding the sign saying, we are flawed, we are. But one thing I think is interesting about Donald Trump becoming president is that and again, they try to make him like he's not human because he had a family that had some real estate prior to him starting his real estate venture. And again, Donald Trump was at the right place at the right time with the right education, with literally a tiny bit of seed money to make his fortune, And again, I've heard people say that fucking $200 million inheritance rumor, and it's like, one, there's something called inheritance tax in this country, where they take half of it no matter what you get. But his family was part of this. He has brothers and sisters, what have you, and they're very firm about him inheriting $1 million. But I know people with $100 million in the bank, and they are not remotely headed to $1 billion. I know through, say, third-party acquaintances who have $1 billion, and they're not remotely headed to making 10. And money is not the end-all, be-all judgment of who you are as a person by any stretch of the imagination, but it does relate to accomplishment and sort of a character cross-section of who you are, what you're capable of doing in this planet. But look at the difference between a speech from Donald Trump and a speech from all the presidents before him. This dude is real. He goes out there and talks like a real human being. In fact, he has mocked anyone who says he doesn't act presidential by walking up to the podium after he's president. He walks up and he goes, they want me to be act presidential. And he goes, I thought getting work done was presidential. I thought fixing all these problems was presidential. And so he walks off stage and he goes, let me show you what presidential looks like. He walks off stage and he stiffens up like Al Gore, like Barack Obama, and he walks out in this really weird walk where he doesn't move his arms, and he stands at the podium and he starts talking like this, and God bless America and all this other shit, and then he walks off real stiff, and then he comes back and he's got his hands up like, what the fuck? Is that what you really want? Are you so fucking Xanaxed out that you can't think for your fucking self and you have this archetype in your brain of what is presidential? Give me a fucking break. And he's right. He goes, I know what I'm doing. He says, I know the words that I choose. I know when I'm reading off the teleprompter, and I know when I'm speaking for myself. Fake news is so monumentally important to understand because it is the control apparatus to make NPCs look normal. Right? How could you have a bunch of fucking weirdos running the world who seem to eat children and do all this other weird shit? Yeah, they got a little flaw in their software. We're going to get into possessive NPCs in just a second, so all you David Icke fans, get your popcorn. But listen to the fake news talk to you in broadcast speak, right? I used to talk about this all the time in season 1 and 2. They talk to you like this. Now the healing can begin. Everything is a pun. That's not fucking real life. Why the fuck would you turn the television on and allow that shit to go into your brain? And when I say shit to go into your brain, I mean that literally. You are just opening up a sieve and putting it into your head and just putting crap into your brain. Don't watch cable television. I mean, it's all agendas and crap to fuck with your brain, to scold you if you so much as wake up, right? And if you go back to the experiment, the idea would be we're going to try to keep you, because we want to hear the mouse say, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. You know, we want it to turn into a Rage Against the Machine mouse and just say, out of here. And then, you know, they're holding the mouse in their hand, their lab rat, and they're like, we got one. And that means we have one that can think for itself. We have one that it's a superhero that says, I am not putting up with this shit anymore. I am taking my TV and I'm disconnecting cable. I might watch my favorite movie that I got on a DVD that inspires me, that makes me feel better about myself or whatever. But I'm not watching anything they're broadcasting at me. A politician has to be real. A politician has to have integrity. We have so many politicians. Oh my God. The Maxine Waters. She just walks around trying to divide the country. She's pulling the race card out, right? She's pulling everything out she possibly can because their captors are pissed and they're about to lose total fucking control. And it's crazy how these motherfuckers have more money than God and they won't let go. They got to have more, right? Hey, take your giant, Pelosi, take your giant money laundering scheme of selling weapons to ISIS through North Korea and take your $200 million you've made doing that and go fuck off somewhere. Just bow out and leave. Take your dentures and go, right? John McCain. Did that guy need to be president for 10 billion years? No. But that piece of shit knows that as soon as he's dead, the only thing that's going to be remembered about that piece of shit is that he gave up all the secrets to the Viet Cong, pretending like he didn't, came back and became a fucking war hero, and then blocked most of the MIA and POW investigations so people could find their loved ones over there because his confession records are sitting right next to the records of their family members, and he doesn't want you to find them. Now, whether or not an NPC is always plugged into the mainframe, whether it's a live streaming situation where they're like, getting new programming. Okay, 6th graders, I have to go. I can't talk without a teleprompter. I am Barack Obama. Choof. I don't know. I don't know if they have a little bit of automaton power to go on their own. And the funny thing is that this theory doesn't have to be necessarily true for us to say, yeah, they act like fucking robots, don't they? They are so inhuman that they could pass for a Westworld robot. So, boy, let's make them politicians right away, right? So the idea that it's Westworld and that they're all being programmed, they have narratives programmed into them, is sort of incongruent with their behavior, right? If that was the case, then Hillary Clinton would have lost the election and taken it like an adult and fucked off somewhere. But no, she runs around like literally a bitchy little girl. She's an insult to any feminist movement on planet Earth where we want to promote strong females. No, She's simply using her name and her pay-to-play relationships to run around the world and complain about why she lost. I mean, it is almost 2 years now, and she is still writing a new book about this is why I really lost, which completely contradicts the last 2 books that I wrote about why I really lost, and unreal. She's going to sink that whole party. It's a fantastic moment in reality. No, it seems a little more organic than that, doesn't it? They seem more flawed than their NPC behavior. But now, we've been talking about NPCs in a pure video game form, to be honest. Completely compromised, completely programmed, completely staged. Everything's a script. Everything's a teleprompter, even if it's just inside their eyelids. What if it isn't that pure? But there's this other theory now, isn't there? And it's old. It's an old theory. And again, there's a little bit of proof that people believe in this theory. In fact, there's a hell of a lot of proof, to be honest with you. This other theory is, well, all I said just now, just to reiterate, is there's proof that people believe this is real, who are in positions of power, okay? There's this possession theory. And what's interesting about it is that I think if I said to you, okay, we're a 5-sense creature, we have a consciousness, and to the degree you engage your consciousness is to the degree you have a natural barrier to being possessed. I mean, you become a lot more difficult to mess with. And it could also be that someone has some technology they can just point at you and then they can give you thoughts of a certain kind. It's a bit of a stretch, but you never know. 100-year theory, right? But David Icke, the former professional soccer or football goalie, as they like to say over there, turned newscaster, sportscaster, turned conspiracy overlord of UK, has been pushing the narrative that he did a bunch of research around the world and wrote a bunch of books about it, that they have always believed that reptilians, a reptilian race of humanoids, has participated in the creation of man. Some people believe that. But if nothing else, they're sort of the intellectual overlords over our world. And just to put a footnote in there, when you buy a David Icke book, there's all this amazing flow in his books that is exciting. You're like, oh my God, didn't realize that, right? Like I say over and over in episodes that he really did a brilliant job at discovering the fact that virtually every culture has some phase in its development where they worshipped reptilians, okay? And that word doesn't click with you if you're just new to this, but like all the Asian cultures were worshipping dragons, right? Dragons are reptilians. All of the pharaohs, who were kings, they had the cobra over their third eye. If there is anything more blatant than a reptilian being involved with your inner consciousness, I don't know what is, right? You have, again, the statues that surround the properties of the British royal family that have a reptilian that's a part of a female body. So it's a female sitting down on a stone, but behind her is a reptilian that blends in with their body that seems to be holding her. That for me is confirmation that at least they believe that in some lore way, if not it being completely true that they are actively participating in this, right? From a scientific standpoint, I do have an episode on the reptilian theory. We see insects all the time that are sort of parasitic. They lay eggs inside other, insects. Like I think the tarantula hawk, doesn't it sting the tarantula and lay eggs inside the tarantula? I mean, there's a bunch that do. That's where they got the idea for the movie Alien. The chest burster. We know that cats give their owners a disease in their brain that makes them like cats. Convincing, and they think it stemmed from the fact that if they could infect a rat colony with this disease, it's through the feces, because rats eat feces. So it comes out of the cat's body into their feces, the rats eat the feces, and then the rats no longer observe the cat as a predator. And so the cat has infinite protein supply by eating the rats that don't view them as a threat. Probably for that last few seconds, they see it as a threat, but you're dead before you know it, right? So this notion that we don't have some sort of symbiotic predator in the universe that is unseen, well, maybe it's because it's unseen that we can't conceive of it. A lot of us, right? Probably not us, but the public at large, right? And there's a rumor that Princess Di used to call the royal family the lizard people. I think that's interesting. It's just a rumor, but it's a good one for the conspiracy itself. For those of us that believe that Princess Di was murdered due to especially the blue paint transfer in the upper right corner panel of the car, I believe it's the upper right, but it's one of the quarter panels of the car that went underneath the bridge. She was going to marry Dodi Fayed's son. She was going to tell all about their pedophile scheme with Jimmy Savile. She's murdered. They put the Statue of Liberty's hand, Queen Semiramis, the money changers, on the overpass over her death, where they killed her, signifying we did this, and if you fuck with us, this is what's going to happen to you. But now she has 2 children who are grown adults now. Okay. You mean to tell me they don't know the conspiracy of their mother being murdered? Or, the son, what is it, Henry? Yeah, it's William and Henry, right? Henry is the one that is the son of the bodyguard, the redheaded bodyguard. Looks just like his dad. So, his mother's murdered, probably in part because he existed by not Charles's DNA. And you mean to tell me these kids have no critical thinking with that impeccable education, let's hope, and they're not looking at their dad going, you fucking killed mom? Really? I mean, what do they have to say? What thing do they say to these kids that go, well, son, it just had to happen. That's just the way we do it. You're in a different status from the rest of the world where we do kill our own kind if they don't behave. So behave, son, because you could be next, right? I mean, what do they say, right? You must say something. You tell me these kids haven't been online to see the conspiracies of it all? Maybe. I do like the fact they seem to enjoy their status in life, where their father always kind of seemed to hate every minute of his life, right? But the theory, back to our story here, is that perhaps, if it's an intelligent race, of course, these, and again, reptilian, whatever, I've never seen a reptilian person, so it really stems again from Carl Sagan's whole emphasis on the R factor brain, which is a more robotic mind of logic. The scariest thing in the fucking world is having a robot like a Robbie the robot, which is infinitely powerful, but he has some predatorial programming in him, right? He's like, exterminate. He's like a Dalek. And he just goes around the world killing humans, and you can't stop him, and there's no rationale. He just kills humans. You'd have to hit him with like a JDM rocket just to dent him, So if you have some sort of consciousness-based race that is out of view, that they can exist around us, and they can manipulate us, because to us the brain is very mysterious, right? I'm not saying they can possess your soul. I'm just saying your vessel, your 5-sense system, can be possessed, because to them it's like Legos. They're like, yeah, whatever. This is like first grade stuff. Maybe this is their experiment. Their experiment. No one likes to think that your host, or I guess your creator, is somehow indignant to your suffering. But, there's scientists out there that perform all kinds of experiments on dogs and monkeys and rats and mice. They have no emotions. They're only there because they have a left brain dominant system. They're not empathetic at all about the suffering, or they've maybe rationalized it to the point they are saying, well, for the greater good. For the greater good, I need to find out if a rat screams when I autopsy it live. because we know it laughs when we tickle its belly. But now take the whole thing. I forgot to finish my point about Donald Trump. The idea is, what if Donald Trump, and again, this is not really, again, every time someone mentions Donald Trump, you think, I got a mega hat on. I'd like a lot of things that he's done. Trust me. And if QAnon, that's a nice one. A Freudian slip there. If the QAnon thing is real, then I love Donald Trump beyond your wildest dreams. Okay, he could be anybody. He could be, the librarian down the street who's a 21-year-old female. If QAnon is telling the truth, then the idea is, what if a non-player character is finally ascended to presidential power, and those that run the experiment just go, oh, look at this. A real one finally made it. He's running. And he actually beat all the competition, or we pulled the system back to make sure that he gets a chance to win. Let's just see what one human being would really do. I mean, he's more normal than any president we've had in ages, right? Flawed to beat the band, sure. But he's not flawed in any way that makes him a shitty leader, except for, the way he talks is self-congratulatory crap that I always talk about. It drives me nuts. It makes me cringe. But you have these leaders that seem to do everything wrong constantly. Again, they can't utter a single phrase without being condescending. Well, what would be the voice of a scientist to a lab rat if the lab rat could talk? I don't want to be in this maze. Well, you have to be in this maze. I don't want to be. Why do I have to be in this maze? Well, we're trying to figure out how you think. Well, why don't you just ask me? Well, it's better this way. You could lie to us. We need to figure out if you really have the potential power that we think you do or don't. There's the movie The Thing by John Carpenter, the remake of the original one, which is absolutely masterful. I believe it's 1981. And they had this, for those of you not familiar with the story, it's a bunch of folks in the Antarctica who have discovered a crashed UFO. And it looks as if a previous team from, at least in the movie, I think they're Norwegian, they discovered the UFO, they broke into it, they may have taken out some sort of specimen, they revived it, and it went fucking berserk. It's got all these powers to emulate our form, shapeshift, very reptilian-like in the theory. And then they get essentially wiped out at the end. And the Norwegians do, and that's when our movie starts, where the American team comes down and finds the wreckage of this whole thing, finds the UFO, and it's like, holy shit. Not knowing that one of the German shepherds that gets loose from the Norwegian team gets into the American base, and it's one of these beings. And very shortly after the film starts, this creature starts to mutate and kill all the other dogs and infect them and spread its goo, its life force, and starts emulating human beings. So there's a point where they know at least one person is one of these things, the thing. And so they figure out that, when this being is attacked, it responds. And it mutates to save itself. And so Kurt Russell's character, it's one of Kurt Russell's best roles ever. I swear to God, this guy really found some great, Escape from New York and all this other stuff. He found some really great roles when he first came out as an actor. He finds out, he's like, look, let's cut everyone's hand and you'll pour all your blood into this petri dish. And then I'm going to heat up with a flamethrower a copper wire. And I'm going to touch the blood in the petri dish with this copper wire, and it's going to react. And they got these guys all strapped down into these chairs, and 3 of them. And, 2 of them are like, all of them are like, hey, I don't want to be strapped down, because what if you find out the guy right next to me is one of these things? He's going to kill me. And for whatever stupid reason, they don't try to fix that problem. But the first couple are duds. The blood simply burns. And I don't know, third one or whatever, shit happens. Okay. And these guys are strapped next to this other dude, and they're all trying to get free. But it would seem logical that perhaps we could create a test that might reveal whether or not someone's an NPC if they are an NPC. You've seen this in movie arcs all the time. But now let's take it down. Let's expand the theory, because what I have done in this episode so far is absolutely obsess on the notion that politics contains the politicians that are more of the NPCs, because it is the focal point, again, of how we behave. Now, the funny thing is you might, you might know a politician that's in your family, right? And they might be really popular. Hell, maybe I even mentioned one of your family members. And the whole notion is, well, I know my family member's real. You don't see their empathy, but I do. All I can say is good. That's good. We'll check them off the list eventually, right? But we do have this group of people who hurt kids. And I'm not going to totally dive off into this because it's a very acidic subject matter, and we all know the game. Are those people that can hurt mankind on that level instantaneous, people like this? I don't know. Seems like it, right? Seems possible, right? What's interesting is I've been in several situations in my lifetime where I definitely hang out with, or have hung out with, uber nerds. They are socially awkward. And they're the first people to tell you that they're socially awkward because, they're inside a lot. They don't have that, that past of going to parties and being, being capable of being the center of attention and handling that fluently, et cetera, et cetera. It's not that they don't have arrogance about what they're good at, and well-earned arrogance in some cases. They just don't have the life experiences that some of us have. But I'll tell you this. They're very human. They're very, very human people. When they're younger, sometimes you run into the quiet ones that are so shy they can barely speak. Sometimes you run into the ones that are flamboyant in their nerdiness. And then you run into the ones that are much older that are just lovable and goofy and innocent and sweet. They can't look you in the eye for more than a split second, but they know they need to, and so they kind of look about, and okay. And so I think that I don't know, I just feel like we can really sense subconsciously humanity in a person. And whether or not this has anything to do with any sort of NPC theory, there seem to be people that lack humility, they lack any sort of depth as a human being. And it's usually very subtle and strange, right? Anytime I watch Barack Obama speak, there is an artificial nature about him. Anytime I see Hillary Clinton speak, it's pure artificial bizarreness, as if she cares not about what anyone else is feeling in the room. She's simply trying to convince you of something constantly. There needs to be a break of humanity in people's nature. Sometimes you can reach a level of status where it's impossible to have that break. I'd say Michael Jackson and Prince both, when interviewed, neither one of them really liked being interviewed. And mainly because both of them understood that they were being misquoted constantly. Imagine that. Imagine if they made a show like this. Would have been so much easier, right? Okay, Prince, sit down, talk. Talk about fucking politics. Talk. He managed to get some BET interviews out where he definitely loosened up a little bit. He's definitely had some interviews over the last couple decades of his life where you really saw the real Prince. There was one where they went to this black girl who used to be a VJ at MTV. I forget her damn name. I don't want to say her name wrong. But she went to Paisley Park and interviewed him, and they spent a whole day together. And it was the most revealing interview you've ever seen with that guy. And they went out and hung out on a swing set, and you just got to see the frailty of this guy who's a superhero to those of us who like his music. It was almost kind of disconcerting as a fan to go, oh, wow, he can't really pull off being on 24/7. And that's good. It's good. It's good that he was human, right? Michael Jackson tried that a couple times and it never worked out. But he'd been famous since he was like 5 years old. I think the overall angst that a lot of us have about theories such as the NPC theory is that a lot of us just desire to be in a world that isn't fucking rigged. That's a big undertow subplot of the truther movement. Is true sovereignty in every corner of the universe. We don't have the grasshoppers and the ants as they dramatized in the Pixar movie A Bug's Life. And for those of you who don't, live in America, the saddest part about not living in America is that I've never heard of the German dream, the Deutschland dream. I've never heard of the Britain dream. I've never heard of the Australian dream or the India dream or the Russian dream. I've only ever heard of the American dream. And we are chastised by folks for having such a fucking notion. What do you mean, the American dream? Well, you know what I mean. You fucking get an education, you get good at something, you get a career in that, and you can spend your entire life doing what you love from the moment you start working at the age of 18 to your retirement at whatever, 60, 70 years old, whenever you choose to get out. And shit, you know what? You can die right over there on the lathe if you want to. Hopefully not due to the lathe, but you can die at your house in front of your typewriter or whatever, polishing a car, dreaming up some new scientific theory that hopefully helps man. Why are we nuts over here for hanging on to the dream of freedom, sovereignty, all being incorporated into your employment and your overall dream, right? Donald Trump said something in his last speech that, he was South Carolina, I think is where he was, but that I haven't heard a president or a leader of any kind say in my entire lifetime. It was the most fundamental right that a human being has. And he said, look, there's nothing like the feeling of a job well done. And I want to give the citizens of America the vocational capability to complete the job of their dreams and the project of their dreams over and over and over again. And I want that to be their mechanism for existing on this planet. Love or hate the guy, I didn't hear anyone else running for president say that. I haven't heard the last, 50 years of presidents say that. I haven't heard the previous several hundred years of presidents say that. And I'm sure someone started saying it if you go back far enough. But Jesus Christ, don't you think it's time that we say it again? Today, most of the world is trying to get welfare to work for everyone. But my dream is to get a paycheck in the mail and go back to watching TV to put shit into my brain, right? If you think about the theory of the NPC, whether it be real or simply a mechanism to define these non-empathetic politicians that seem to get into power, and there's bankers and all kinds of folks that have the same role, right? Maybe even leaders of militaries, right? For those of you who remember this moment, I want you may not remember the exact moment because I'm not sure I remember the exact day myself. But there's a day when you take the training wheels off your bike. And there's nothing more liberating than that moment. You can't do tricks on your mongoose bike with training wheels on the back. One, you look pretty stupid doing it. But two, you can't lean your bike over. That's what training wheels are supposed to be there for, to keep you in a three-wheeler situation. If you lean over because you can't balance, well, you're just left, right, left, NPCs, if they were to exist, would be nothing more than a controlling apparatus. It might be training wheels to get society started, but it might also be shackles and chains on who we want to be as a race. Now imagine this one. Let me throw this little zinger at you. What if our controllers are like sort of the Gene Roddenberry world? This doesn't really make any sense unless we're a completely different species than they are, but we have a similarity. We're made in their form. What if they have this weird end goal for how society should behave? They have no currency. It is very socialistic. You do get your job assigned to you and you learn to like it and that kind of thing, right? I think it would be likened very much to raising a child. There are some parents that want their kids to completely take over their family tradition, their family job, you know. What if you're the Firestone Company? Like I used to hang out with one of the Firestone sons when I first came out to California. And I'm sitting there and we're watching, I think we're watching midget racing in this mud track in Ventura. And we're sitting there watching. And I'm a little blown away, you know. I'm like, oh, I'm sitting here with the Firestone kid, one of them, good-looking guy, definitely poised to take over the family business when it comes time. He's probably in his mid-20s, I'd say. But here he is waking up to a world where he's like, my God, there's not a single kid I know, unless he knows the Pirelli kids, right? Where he's like, my family name is all over tires. We sponsor F1 and NASCAR and all these different races around the world. We sell millions of tires to various car manufacturers. We have outlets all over the world. It's massive. It's a little bit different than your mom and pop shop where you're going to inherit the shoe shop in my hometown. So there's an immediate benefit to this kid because, you know, I mean, the kid was handsome and what have you, so he wouldn't have had a problem in certain territories of life, but coming in a multi-billionaire family doesn't hurt, right? And so his father is most likely very, very pleased that his son could see the value of taking over the business. And so the algorithm in his son's brain is perfect. For all intents and purposes, he's going to do what his father wants him to, that the family wants him to, and he's probably going to enjoy it. Nothing wrong with that, man. That is awesome. That is freaking awesome. We need a lot more of that going on for these good meat and potato companies, right? But if our captors have the same thing for us, they're like, you know what? You'll really like this world if you can just fucking get to that point where you think like this. And we've got these NPCs down there so that you can get to this point. And yeah, we do create a lot of nasty crap in your world because we're trying to make you react to it so that you pop over to the good nature of how the world works or could work. The Sumerians have poetic text that talks about how these beings would come out of the hills, come down and reset society, elect a leader, and then leave. And then that leader would obviously go for a long time, die, and it would rejuvenate for anywhere from 300 to 1,000 years. And then this would happen again. I think it's fascinating, right? What if that was true? As I said back in my flat earth days, what if those were the dome owners coming in and going, all right, fuckers, stop touching kids, all right? In fact, we're taking you with us because you need to be removed from the dome. We know what went wrong with you and what have you, but you can't stick around. Now, here's how it's going to be. Boom, 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 boom. Do you get it? Yes, I get it. Totally. We've been waiting for something like this to occur. Okay, so you could be the leader. Don't fuck around. We're going to come back. We're taking this dude off to get some nice rehabilitation. You'll be next if you do it again. Don't even worry about it. We got this. And again, we might have it for a couple generations, for a few millennia, or a few centuries, and then it might crawl back in because power corrupts absolute, right? Now, the frustrating notion about this last assertion that I've made and this final assertion that I will make is that, a lot of us would probably respond if we could simply get the manual on how it should be done. This is the way it should be done, right? The Georgia Guidestones. Can you imagine if it's the captors putting the Georgia Guidestones down? Holy shit. First thing they say is, you know what? You've overpopulated. I don't think that's the truth, but what if they think that? They go, look, if you really want to be happy, you got to not have so many goddamn kids, right? It dawned on me the other day. This is a weird thought, but isn't it interesting that the races that barely populate this planet, the ones that are like the white people of the world, that are losing their population in droves, right? We're not procreating enough. We're not having enough children. We're all fucking self-involved, right? We make all the porn in the world. And the countries that screw like bunnies and have way too many goddamn kids, you don't see their stuff online. In fact, they typically will have laws in their countries where if you're caught with pornographic material, you can get the death penalty. Isn't that interesting? You think it'd be the opposite. You'd think white people would just film golf. But now let's play devil's advocate to this whole notion that they wish us well. What are the politicians of the world associated with? Well, I would wager I could prove in a court of law depopulation, poisoning us. They seem to be almost one-to-one associated with molesting our children and killing them, engaging in human trafficking. I think we just elected the president, one of the only guys in the planet that isn't a member of a secret society, that has no record of doing this sort of thing. Does he like the opposite sex? Oh, yes, he does. But there is a war on right now to get these people cleaned off the face of the planet. If the NPCs have ever been under attack, it's right now. So the NPC has to be evaluated. Are they good or are they bad if they were to exist? I think what's funny is we could probably hang on to this NPC label, even if they don't exist, simply to describe the politician that has no empathy. The one that, you know, is best buds with Jimmy Savile, Jeffrey Epstein. You know, we have the Grimm's brothers, who wrote all the German tales. I wouldn't say all, but they wrote, you know, they're the most famous writers for these allegorical children's stories where in the end the children died in almost every single case, right? Little Red Riding Hood did not get away, right? Hansel and Gretel got eaten, okay? It was Walt Disney that took all those stories and made them positive at the end. I don't think it's a big stretch that we don't want these people running our world. I think we have enough people that can understand how this works. And I think we might be in the 2018 awakening might simply be the replacement of these individuals with real human beings, because we're starting to hive mind due to the internet, our natures, to understand them. We're not going to have a moment, I should say, where the manual's given to us. But it would seem that mankind is reaching a point where we're starting to do the traditional phrase, the traditional methodology, which is that we are hive minding the manual through vocal means, which is, you know, for those of you who believe in the Bible being true, the story was that it was passed down orally for a long time and finally written down several centuries after Christ's supposed death, right? Well, in a real way, we're really doing that right now. We're combining our notes. And, you know, they're out there disinfoing the shit out of things. You have disinfo happening, and this is something that's really been a revelation the last couple of weeks here in spring of 2018. I think we're almost at summer now. But the idea is that we have egos out there that don't want to share airtime with the truth. And they are struggling to deduce the truth. And so the big game that's being played is don't pay attention to him, pay attention to me. And it has nothing to do with a true goal of finding honesty, right? I think we need to work to that end where we really lay down some law, I mean, again, like, I'm just going to go for a very specific thing because I think it's important and I get specific comments about it. You won't see me cross over into this realm that often, but the idea that Alex Jones, of all people, is not reporting on Q, and when he does, he reports on it through a proxy. And recently, there was a mistake on the ATRAN boards that a password was exposed, and which is unbelievable. It's one of these things like if you're in public and you're logging into your phone, you accidentally type your password into the username field, it's not turned into dots. And if anyone's standing over your shoulder, they can see what your password is, right? You make that mistake probably, once every couple of years. This is what happened on ATRAN. Someone typed in the password and hit submit, and it went out as a post. People are like, what the fuck does that mean? I didn't see it personally, but they cleaned it up real quick. Resecured everything and said to the public, we made a mistake. We accidentally published the password. It's now been re-encrypted. It's all safe, and anything posted as a result of that account after that point was erased. We make mistakes too. But that was drummed up by Alex Jones as being they were compromised and he knows who all the QAnons are and he has inside information, all this other stuff. All right. So since October of 2017, this QAnon dude has been predicting the future like a goddamn fortune teller. Now, some of it isn't that, but he doesn't claim that a lot. In fact, he doesn't claim, look at me, I've been able to predict everything, but he does make posts to say, look, you've been able to verify that the things that I told you were going to happen happened, and they happened when I said it was going to happen, and it happened the way I said it would happen. He's also been releasing some inside photographs that show how close he is to the president by photographing desks and some very close items to say, look, I'm not going to give you too much information, but look, this is how close I am. He's also predicted some things that haven't been released, some photographs that need to be released. So he's not perfect. Maybe they changed their mind. Maybe they're just baiting. Maybe they're just trying to scare people. And again, this whole thing could come out in the end and be a ruse, a live action role-playing exercise. But currently, his record since October, and again, I've warned you guys that there is a methodology of releasing truth for a little while and then flipping it and screwing everyone in the end, right? Where you're totally burned by disinfo at the end of a strand of comments that started out true and then they baited us in, what have you. So far, it's been the only source of information that has explained everything that is unexplainable on this planet. But it would seem that, at this point in my life, I really do think Alex Jones has been totally compromised, whether it be his ego that allows him to be compromised, or he has truly been visited by black suits that said, here's what you're going to do, and here's what you're going to get for what you do. And again, if he is part of the problem, if he has been hiding in the mezzanine between truther movement and the clowns, then he is going to do everything in his power to discredit those that are going to expose him. So he has maneuvered himself, in my opinion, in the truth movement, right under the crosshairs of evaluation, not of being executed or anything. But he keeps saying he has all these insiders, but he never predicts anything, right? He'll say he has an article that proves something and it's from his own website. Well, how fucking convenient is that, right? That's like me making an episode talking about a previous episode and saying, there's proof on the internet that this is true. There's videos out there that tell you how it works. And I'm talking about myself. That's a bullshit Ponzi scheme if you've ever seen one in the truth movement, right? Whatever we're doing more things right now in the truth movement than we're doing wrong. We over-evaluate too much, and we do persecute heroes from time to time. I think it's a process. I think that, if I were to come out and say anything outrageous about what's going on in the world and what have you, then I expect to have the same criticism on me. the same evaluation on me. But I try to steer away from that crap because I feel like, well, you're going to get that from somebody else. I don't need to go out there and talk about dark stuff. I'm more interested in your brain. I'm more interested in what's funny is what I have been trying to do over the last 3 years, Q has done in, 10 months, 8 months, whatever. I guess it's probably about 8 months. Getting all these folks to do what they call the autistic version of their brain, to grow it, which is to analyze things, to deduce things, and to work together. And again, most of the people that follow QAnon are very young people. That's very exciting for me. We can't let it turn into paranoia and hysteria. You have to pause. You have to count to 10 before we launch a intellectual ICBM at someone. I think there's a little bit of you give the person the benefit of the doubt while you are evaluating and while you're being critical of them. It's very, very important. NPCs, well, let's keep talking about it. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Apparently there's a movement online for this, so feel free to post other videos about this in the comment section. I'll prove everything. Again, some of your posts, when you post videos, will be flagged and held. If you're a person that's trying to spread truth and you think you have a bombshell of a video, either one you've made or one you've found, and you're posting it all over everyone's channel, YouTube will mark you as a potential spammer, especially if someone on the other channel doesn't appreciate your efforts and they mark you as a spammer, as a potential spammer. It will mark it for me that way, and then I have to evaluate it. So what I'll typically do is you'll post that. If it gets held, I might be in my car, I might be doing something, I might be traveling, and I don't have a chance to watch it. One of the bummers is that the YouTube app that helps us manage our channels, when you click a link, it doesn't go anywhere. And so I have to get stationary somewhere, my laptop, my home computer, and then I can go to the master control panel in YouTube, and then I can click it and watch it to see that it's not some nutbag thing, right? And, even if I totally disagree with what you say, it's marked your property. So even if you're off in some tangent that I don't understand or agree with, I'll still let it go through. It's your property. It's your opinion. That's fine with me. Totally fine with me. But if you're trying to promote your buddy's rock video, I'm not going to let that through. If you're trying to sell a product, I'm not going to let that go through. It has nothing to do with our conversation. But as long as it's remotely on target, or even if you're like, hey, you should check this out, boom, it has, it's like a loose connection with the episode, I'll let it go through. Okay? I just want you to know the bowels work so you don't think I'm being some censorship dude. Anyway, if you haven't been to deepthoughtsradio.com, please go. There's audio, video, a locked Facebook group, and a Patreon page. Make a quick bumper today. Take care of yourself and someone else, and I'll see you in the next Deep Thoughts. Over and out. So I have a string of lights hanging in my porch here, and I got hummingbirds everywhere. And this little hummingbird has landed. He's pretty young. I can see his little tongue coming out of his really long beak. It's crazy. He's bathing himself on this light strip up here. So he's picking his fur, his little tongue sticking out. He's cleaning his belly, cleaning his wings. Oh my God. He's actually like cleaning right under his neck, which is unreal. So what he has done is he used the wire that the lights are on to clean his beak. And he actually was wiping his beak on the wire. Left, right, left, right, left, right. He did it to his right, and then he turned and did it to his left. Absolutely little majestic buggers. He keeps cleaning his chest plate right underneath his chin, which makes him wind his head way down. Oh, he just lets him go there. Think about how fast that they move and think. Him spending that much time up there is probably like an hour for him. I'll put that at the end.